It is finally time for Mr. Frodo to take a back seat and make room for the characters that really saved Middle-earth. In this video, we are going to dive into one of the greatest fantasy trilogies of all time, The Lord of the Rings, by J.R.R. Tolkien. And instead of looking at the characters who get all the shine, let's look at the greatest underdog characters, whom if not for them, Sauron's plans would have come to fruition. Which I honestly never understood. Why would you want to fill the planet with a bunch of nasty, stinking orcs? What a fabulous idea. Would love to smell that every day. Anyways, on this channel, we are a huge fan of the underdog, because most of us will always be underdogs, especially those trying to grind it out as creators or artists in this heavily saturated world, just trying to have their voice heard for a moment. We are going to look at two characters in particular, the absurdly annoying but endearing Gollum, and our favorite fat hobbit, Samwise Gamgee, who was not even fat. These two characters tipped the scales, and if not for their actions, no matter how tiny and seemingly insignificant, Middle-earth would have certainly fallen. This goes to show that even though fictional, everything has something to teach if you look in the right places. You might be saying that characters like Aragorn, Frodo, and Gandalf would be worthy of a deep dive, and I totally agree, but I am fascinated with events so tiny that they do not even seem to have happened, influencing events on a grand scale, changing people's lives and the world itself. As always, we will be looking at the backstory and the deeds of these characters, so we can get the full picture as to how they saved Middle-earth. I chose these characters because, interestingly, their stories run side by side with each other, affecting each other's plight at every turn, and one would not be relevant without the other. Let's start with Gollum. He is a tragic figure in The Lord of the Rings because his life is defined by loss, corruption, and inner conflict. Once known as Smeagol, he was an ordinary creature with the capacity for friendship and kindness. But his discovery of the One Ring led him to murder his closest companion and begin a long moral decline. Over centuries, the ring twisted his mind and body, isolating him from all society and splitting his identity between the hateful, possessive Gollum and the lingering, remorseful Smeagol. This inner struggle makes him deeply pitiable. He both longs for redemption and is unable to escape his obsession. Ultimately, Gollum's tragic fate lies in the fact that the ring destroys what humanity he has left, even as his actions unintentionally help bring about its own destruction. We all know that he called the ring his precious, and this drive to satiate the need actually brought about some good. I think of this akin to a human addicted to a hardcore drug in the modern age. They start to change, mentally and physically, becoming a shadow of their former selves, and their only drive in life is the pull towards whatever will take away the pain and give them their next hit of relief. The ring represents in all ways the most hardcore of drugs, power. To human beings, power is the most corrupting, and of course this is highly dependent on your personality, but we truly see ourselves in the light when we are given an amount of power. Whether it is a person who gets promoted to manager in your office, and you see them turn into Hitler, totally thinking they own you, letting the fleeting power go to their heads, or a person achieves the highest political office in the land, and on a massive scale starts implementing the destruction of his fellow man, out of sheer revenge for past slights and insecurities abound. Gollum follows this drug around all over Middle-earth, and puts himself in the most precarious of situations just to keep in distance of it, just like an addict, who gets relief merely by association and the presence of their chosen vice. Now, you ask, how did Gollum save Middle-earth? Well, quite simply, he took a perilous journey from the Misty Mountains all the way to Mordor, out of some misplaced loyalty towards Frodo Baggins, but mostly because he was biding his time until he could recover his precious ring and continue the caressing of it. It may seem meaningless, but this frail, emaciated creature trekked barefoot, basically naked, across a treacherous landscape, avoiding danger at every turn. This shows the primal drives that can motivate any being into doing seemingly impossible feats. We see there is always a dual side to this creature, and we can never tell what he is truly thinking. His mind is disjointed. I remember the first time I watched the movie just waiting for him to double-cross the hobbits. And of course it comes at a few turns, but not as I thought it would. Although there is some genuine loyalty towards Frodo there, just like a dog to its master, Gollum depends on Frodo as the sort of caretaker of his precious, so he will do anything to ensure his survival for the time being. Because Gollum, like a true addict does not need food. His vice provides nourishment, as most addicts would choose theirs over actual food if given a choice between one or the other. It is a great coincidence that we are looking at these two characters, and they obviously had a hatred for each other, especially Gollum towards Sam, but their fates pushed and pulled on each other heavily. He even goes as far as to sprinkle breadcrumbs on him while he is sleeping, so Frodo thinks Sam ate all their rations. I was dying watching this, and then he calls him the Fat Hobbit, simply hilarious. Sam would have probably eaten it anyways, haha. Let's just say they are always at each other's throats. But Samwise knows Gollum is just waiting for the perfect time to strike, while Frodo is more reluctant to hate, because he knows Gollum's plight and pities him. Gollum's major betrayal comes in the form of leading Frodo into the giant spider's lair, and it was a pretty genius plan. He knew this monster arachnid would devour him, and then he could pick through her droppings and leftovers for the ring. But instead she stings Frodo, rendering him unconscious, and wraps him up in her web. It is pretty amazing that the journey of Gollum's runs parallel to Sam's, only going perpendicular at the end, and that is why I chose these two, because they are always influencing the other's outcomes. So, after all these betrayals and meandering paths, we get to see Gollum save Middle-earth. Frodo gets all the credit, but if not for Gollum's Jones for a fix, Frodo would have been consumed by the allure of the ring, taking it for himself, and essentially turning into his own version of Gollum. Frodo says the ring is his, it belongs to him and nobody else, slips it on, and becomes invisible. What a disaster. They had come so far, the whole fate of Middle-earth in the balance. But this guy cannot destroy the ring, and pulls an Isildur, keeping it for himself. The rest of the Fellowship is fighting on all fronts, and all hope seems lost in an impossible fight. Frodo breaks Sam's heart by doing this, and starts walking away. All you can see is his large hobbit footsteps in the dirt inside Mount Doom. Gollum makes his heroic appearance by jumping on Frodo's back, tracking his movements with the ring. Gollum bites Frodo's finger off, severing his ring finger. Finally, it is just him and his precious. No worries, screw the world. While this may have been the shortest-lived high ever, because Gollum of course plunges deep into the volcano, and with an amazing scene, we see Gollum soak up every last second with the ring until he is consumed by the molten lava, followed shortly after by the ring itself. So technically, this underdog creature, kept on a leash and reviled, ends up saving the day, because if not for him, Frodo would have slipped off into the void, and all battles would have been lost thereafter. He did not do it for some altruistic purpose, of course not. He was trying to scratch the perpetual itch that all addicts have, and by doing so, he saved Middle-earth as a side effect. Simply incredible. This is why I love looking deeply at these characters and stories, because it shows us instances and situations that we find ourselves in within our own lives, just on a much smaller scale. So if we see what the outcomes can be, we can use this as inspiration and knowledge of how to predict outcomes of human behaviors. And this was Gollum's lesson. Samwise Gamgee, on the other hand, is the underdog hero of the Lord of the Rings because, despite his humble origins and lack of power, his courage and loyalty prove essential to the quest's success. As a simple gardener from the Shire, Sam never seeks glory or recognition, yet he consistently chooses to endure fear, hardship, and danger for the sake of his friend Frodo. Unlike great warriors or wizards, Sam's strength lies in his compassion, resilience, and unwavering sense of duty. He carries hope when all seems lost, resists the ring's corruption through love rather than ambition, and ultimately bears Frodo when Frodo can no longer go on. Through Sam, Tolkien shows that true heroism often comes from ordinary individuals who act selflessly in the face of overwhelming odds. When we think of Sam, we think of a fat sidekick, but he actually is the strength of the operation, the heart and soul, the Rudy of the team, get it? With all his qualities, he still would not have the fortitude to carry the ring himself. Certain people and characters are meant to prop others up, meaning they are their best selves when helping another reach their pinnacle. Do you know someone like this? In my opinion, these are selfless people because it takes a certain personality to serve another, to make your life about theirs, your hopes. Your dreams are put on the back burner so that they can live out theirs. This was Samwise Gamgee. So how did he save Middle-earth? Well, it is quite obvious. We all know that without Sam, meek Frodo would have been in the corner struggling a long time ago. Sam was always there for him, pulling him back into the fray, giving him that moral and physical support he needed. He was a balm, a boost, and there were many times when Sam had Frodo's back, and therefore helped save Middle-earth, because Frodo's survival meant the ring's destruction. But we can look at a few that intersected with our friend Gollum. Gollum had been manipulating Frodo with thoughts that Sam was betraying them, and was doing things to jeopardize the mission. So after the Fat Hobbit incident and plotting whispers, Sam was going to throttle Gollum. Frodo had had enough, and for the first time, Sam and Frodo part ways. But of course, a true sidekick never leaves, and we see this when Frodo essentially chooses Gollum, a very stupid decision which he regrets immediately. After Frodo is bound in the spider's web, wrapped up and going to be dinner, Sam shows up with the phial of Galadriel, containing the light of Arindel, a blinding light that scares off this giant arachnid, allowing Sam a brief moment to try and rescue a paralyzed Frodo. He cannot finish his rescue because two orcs show up and see that the spider has been busy, so they take Frodo back to the tower, not knowing that he carries the Ring of Power. This leads to one of my favorite scenes, where Samwise Gamgee storms the tower to rescue Frodo. Here we see the heart of a lion, fearless in the face of danger, doing whatever it takes to rescue his friend. After their reunion, though, Frodo finds out that he has lost the ring, but Sam actually had the foresight to take it before the orcs captured Frodo for safekeeping. Frodo was not happy about this, and snatches the ring back to drape around his neck once again. So, without Sam here, the ring would have eventually been found by the enemy, and all would have been lost. Besides this direct involvement, his greatest contribution was acting as Frodo's bodyguard and keeper, shielding him from danger at every turn. And I do not want to make it seem that Frodo was not grateful, because he says Frodo would not have gotten far without Sam. So at least he knows what's up. During the events inside Mount Doom, Sam once again saves Frodo's life when he and Gollum tumble over the side, and Sam catches Frodo in one of the most powerful scenes, pulling him up by his bloody hand. This was Samwise, true blue, altruistic, and good on his feet. So, with all of this, these two characters are now in a new light for me. They stand shoulder to shoulder, figuratively, with characters like Legolas, Gandalf, and Aragorn, but Boromir does not count. It is one of the greatest, most moving scenes in all of movie history during the final scene of the movie when Aragorn, now king, proclaims that these hobbits bow to no one, and then the entire assembly of humans bend the knee for the ones they cannot see. Goddamn brilliant. That is the type of thing you need at the end of a movie, and I find myself missing scenes like this, that move you to the core, totally miffed from movies today, almost gone. Do not get me wrong, they are still there, but the days of Braveheart, Man in the Iron Mask, and of course Lord of the Rings is past, but I am hoping we are making a move to bringing the emotion back into cinema. Thank you so much for watching. It is only because of you few that I know there are still like-minded individuals who want something deeper, something more. So these videos are for you guys. Remember to always respect the little guy, because most likely he is bringing 10 times more to the table than someone who is gifted with great height and great prowess. The unseen characters, the ones who have to earn their right to sit at the table with their heart, their skills, and their minds, those are the ones I truly respect. We all love the hulking hero, but honestly, I prefer the flawed, wayward underdog, who goes through such agitation that it breeds evolution. The Fat Hobbit stole my precious.
My precious.